Welcome to the Homegrown podcast, a place where we share the truth about food and farming from our kitchen to yours. I'm your host, Liz Hazelmeyer, along with my husband, Joey.
Good afternoon.
And together we hope to educate, inspire, and equip you in your pursuit of true nourishment. Today we're sitting down with Lyndsey of Treehouse Schoolhouse. She is a homeschooling mom of 4 and someone with a wonderful story to tell. So Lyndsey, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, I'm so happy to be here.
We're excited, and I would love for you to give our audience a quick introduction into your story.
Sure, quick. Okay, I'll try my best. We live in North Carolina. My husband and I are both entrepreneurs. We homeschool, and we're really passionate about home-based living. So home cooked food, educating at home, working from home, and bringing people into our home. So a lot of my story today is going to be all about our new home and the journey that it took us to get here. So I'm ready to jump in and share.
I love that. I know Joey wanted to rewind the tape a little bit and get to even how you and your husband met. So
the question that I would stage to kind of get this kicked off would be, how did this mission? So there's the beginnings of Treehouse Schoolhouse that I'm really interested in. It's kind of how we got there. But then it sounds like there's almost like the beginnings of your family. And it sounds like they might be a little bit intertwined. So let's start with, maybe where you went to school, where you and your husband met, what his name is, because I haven't got to meet him yet. But and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so my husband's name is Matt.
Matt.
We didn't meet till we were in our upper 20s. So during my 20s, I went to Bible college and I wanted to study it to be elementary education, like Christian education, something in ministry, or in education. So I ended up getting a job as a children's pastor, and I managed hundreds of kids in lots of classrooms and children's church when I was in my early 20s. And I was just it was totally in my element. I loved being creative. I loved making lesson plans. We ended up going on missions trips, and I would create lesson plans for, overseas. And then I left that job and went on the mission field myself for a little while with YWAM. And when I came back, I got a position as a nanny. And after I was there for just a little while, the mom said, you know what, I really want to homeschool these kids. And I was just wondering if you would basically full-time homeschool my children. One of the kids had special needs and the other child was having some social issues. So she took both of her kids out of school, and I became a full-time homeschool teacher. I would homeschool one child in the morning and the other child in the afternoon, and we would do all the extracurriculars. And before I was even a parent, I found myself living and among homeschool moms. That was my social life, and learning, this whole world of homeschooling and becoming very passionate about it. So I was able to marry my interest in discipleship and biblical teaching alongside education. And so it was in that job that was the season that I met my husband. And so from the beginning, I'm like, listen, I want to homeschool. I wasn't homeschooled. He wasn't homeschooled, but this opened up a world to me that we can take the kids outside and we can go up in their treehouse and have school, which is the inspiration for my name, Treehouse Schoolhouse. We would take our lessons out on the water and, all of these things. And so I really just fell in love with it. And my husband and I met on a fishing pier on Anna Maria Island in Florida, which is where I lived. I was kind of a beach hippie, barefoot, worked at a farmer's market on the side, made jewelry and sold it. And so I met him out there because of a mutual friend, and we found out we were both going to the same young adult ministry at the time. And so then we just developed our friendship. But from there, we lived in Florida a while, and then we felt like we wanted to live somewhere that we could be outside more year round and that had a really rich homeschooling culture and family culture. And so we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina after doing some research and prayer. And we just sort of took a stab and we're like, let's just go. And we didn't have any job here. We didn't have any family here. We just came. And so from there, my husband was a firefighter in Florida, and I started having babies. And we were really struggling financially. He couldn't get the position. He couldn't transfer the position. That's not how it works in firefighting. So he had to start over from the bottom, and we were living on his income. My first 2 children have hearing loss, and we were struggling through that and trying to figure out financially how we were going to afford these special needs children. And so somewhere when they were preschool age, I started my Instagram account without thinking about building a business. I just wanted an outlet. And so I started sharing what we were doing for curriculum and, ideas and stuff, because I had this background of education and I was passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, I was like, oh man, like people are offering to send me free curriculum in exchange for sharing. Oh, this is like a huge win for me because we could use it, And it just grew from there. It was crazy. A few years later, I developed my first curriculum and it became a whole business. And now we have a whole team and all kinds of things has developed out of it. So it's been a huge blessing, not what we expected, but it's been amazing.
So Bible college,
Yes.
I'm backing up a little bit here. I have a few questions. Where did you go to Bible college?
I went to Trinity College of Florida for a year, and then I wanted to like see the world more, and I wanted to experience a different way of learning. And I went to a ministry training school in New York called Elam Bible Institute. It's very, very small. And it's in Rochester.
Cool.
And so you studied early education, early childhood education. Is that what you studied?
Yeah, early childhood education, Christian education, and then I transferred into youth ministry. So somewhere I just knew I wanted to do something with children or teenagers. And out of that college, I got hired as the children's ministry director back in Florida.
So you're working as a children's ministry pastor,
mm-hmm.
and then you become a nanny. This is the part that I was going to hone in on.
Sorry, I just talked and told my whole story.
I loved it.
One
so
answer.
No, it was great. It was great. So you become a nanny.
Yeah.
And what you kind of glossed over, which I think so many people are frightened about, is the question was posed to you, will you just homeschool my kids?
Yeah.
And was this just you were like, sure. I mean, are you just the kind of person that can say, hey, you know what? I studied this in college, and I studied a lot of things in college. Doesn't mean that I'm ready to jump into them right away out of the blue. But did you feel pressured? How did you start? Where did you learn how to even find curriculum? I mean, how did that go?
That's a great question. I mean, of course I was intimidated because I didn't have children of my own. I hadn't homeschooled, of course, but I was so excited. I felt like this is exactly what I was made to do. And I had been working with children for as long as I could remember, teaching the Bible, and even kids that I would babysit as a teenager. It was just in me to teach, to lead, to create lessons. I would play school in my own treehouse as a child and make lessons for my brother. It was just in me. So I was excited. I was mostly nervous because the child had special needs that I was very unfamiliar with. And so for those things, I was reading books and I went to a training. But the mom gave me so much freedom, and she was just like, I trust you, and make this fun for him, make him enjoy it. And so that was my aim. And it was the child who didn't want to read or write and was throwing fits at school and couldn't be in school. And a few months later, he's reading, he's writing, he loves school. And it was just super rewarding. I'm a young 20-something, and I felt like it was the biggest accomplishment of my life to be able to turn this around for him. And it opened my eyes that all children, special needs or not, all children are different, and they need to play. They need to move. They need to have their hands in something. They need to see beauty, and they need to fall in love with books and not be forced everything stuffed down their throat. I was able to help him chase his interests. And that's why, he was obsessed with fishing. He lived on the ocean. So I turned math, everything was about fishing for 3 weeks. And it clicked. He's like, oh, I can learn how to read all of these things about fish. I can learn math through fish. And it was it just made him excited, and that made me excited. So, I mean, I was scared, but I don't know. I am kind of the person that just jumps in and is like, let's do it.
What was this training you did?
Oh, I went to so he really struggled with handwriting. And so I found a workshop that was specifically for special needs and pencil grip and handwriting. So it was handwriting without tears. I don't know if you've ever heard of that company. Mm-hmm. So I went to one of their workshops for teachers, and I was the only person in the room that wasn't teaching a classroom of people. Mm-hmm. And what else? I went to a conference that was specifically about some of his special needs. So a sensory processing kind of conference, which honestly didn't really help me much. I feel like I needed hands-on. I just needed to get in there. And I think that's the same thing about you say, oh, well, you went to school for this. I didn't use any of that stuff that I used about curriculum.
Funny how that works.
Right? Curriculum. Yeah. I even took classes that were developing curriculum, like creating lesson plans. And I didn't even it didn't work. Like I had to do it my own way. And even now I am my whole job is a curriculum developer. We sell thousands and thousands of curriculum all around the world. I didn't use my education background for to do it. I did it through, I'm a homeschool mom. I know what my kids need. I see what makes them come alive. I'm going to create that for other people's homes. So college can be useful, but it also isn't everything.
Totally. I love how so much of your story, looking back on it, you're like, oh, that's why I went through that, right? That's why I had that training. That's why I had that season of life. And it's almost like, well, duh, you're a content creator and developer of curriculum. Now you can kind of say that looking back on it, which is so fun when I hear people's stories, because it's really like an intentionally woven, beautiful story that you have. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, many times I've looked back and been like, Lord, you're so faithful.
I know.
So many of the same things have come up from my ministry experience. And now I'm using that as I'm creating curriculum for parents to disciple their children, or the special needs that I dealt with. Now I have children that have the same struggles. It's like, I couldn't have created a better, plan, of course, isn't that what the word says? So
you homeschooled as a nanny. And then how soon after that did you get married?
So I was still working in that position when we got married.
Got it.
And I stayed working with them until my baby was 3 months old, and I just couldn't handle it anymore and I had to come home. But so yeah, I basically took him from kindergarten to 4th grade.
That's amazing.
And then I sadly had to leave, and I'm still close with them. They're in their 20s now, those kids, which ages me. But
that's so sweet.
So you and your husband, Matt, how quickly did you decide? Take me through the process of deciding to homeschool.
Oh, there wasn't really much process. It was, from the moment he met me, he saw my passion. I mean, when we were dating, it was when I was teaching this child. And so I would go do my morning shift with the kids, be done at 2 or something, go to his apartment and tell him all about my lesson plans. I was expressing to him what and how this child was growing and changing, and the breakthroughs that we were having. And he saw that gift in me, and he actually told me at that time, you're gonna write world changing curriculum one day. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't even want to do that. I just want to have my own kids. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't want to work. And he said, yeah, you're gonna publish it for churches or something. And I'm like, no. And so from the beginning, even though neither of us had experience homeschooling ourselves, we're like, oh yeah, the minute we have kids, that's what we're doing. So there wasn't really a decision process, and I think it didn't really take any convincing, because he saw me doing it before I even had children.
So he rolled into that situation, zero question, we're going to homeschool our kids.
I mean, he had some, but it didn't really take much. I think also at the beginning of our homeschooling, he's like, well, Lyndsey really is passionate about this. She's good at it. She's staying home anyway. And then on top of that, our kids having hearing loss kind of was the final thing, because in a big group of kids, they wear hearing aids and they can hear in a good listening environment and there's no struggle. But in a not good listening environment, a classroom, when there's 30 kids and there's a pencil sharpener and there's this thing going on in that, they're going to get lost. And we see that already in group settings, but we can be there with them to teach them to advocate for themselves and say, hey, I didn't hear you, and go closer. Anyway, that kind of helped him with the final decision. But he'll say that at the beginning, he was more just school's a good option. Homeschooling is a good option. Lyndsey cares about homeschooling. She's good at it. We'll just do that. And now that he's seen the fruit of homeschooling, and the way our world's gone, and just more what he's learned about it, he's like, oh, there is just absolutely no way we would do it any other way.
Homeschooling is a powerful thing. And when Elizabeth and I got married, so I was homeschooled growing up.
Okay.
And Elizabeth was not. And Elizabeth would be the primary decision maker. Now we will discuss things, and there's definitely vision that I might cast for our family. But when it comes to our kids and their well-being, and she's around them more often than I am, and she's definitely the COO of that kind of part of our life, right? So she's making the calls, making the shots. And it was a suggestion that I made when we got married, And I was like, hey, this homeschooling thing is kind of great. And there's a lot of things that I felt like it's been powerful in my life. And initial reaction was that she was not super interested in homeschooling for a number of reasons, a number of, I think, valid reasons.
I don't think they were valid.
Well, I mean,
I think I just was coming at it with an assumption of what I saw my peers. And I had this really stark response to, well, if it's not what I experienced, then it's just not, it could never be as good.
yeah.
Looking back now, and I had a ton of friends in high school that were homeschooled, and they were like, literally, we love it. I even had like a good friend who was homeschooled, went to public school for like a semester, and then dropped out and was like, heck no, I'm going back to homeschooling because I have so much more free time.
Yeah.
And I remember always thinking those people were crazy. But I think there's a real thing. If you come from the public school system, you have a real nostalgia built around it. You have a real like culture built around that public school, that community feels like small town USA. And I think my reasons weren't, I didn't really have a valid reason. I was just like, that just feels different and I'm scared of different, to be completely honest. Other people may have valid reasons, but I think I was just scared of different.
And we sent our kids to school at least Sophia went to school.
She went to a half-day kindergarten for 1 year.
And then
that was it. Yep.
And we've been homeschooling ever since. We now have 3 daughters, and we homeschool all 3 of them.
Our oldest is in the 7th grade.
And so our youngest is 3. So
not yet schooling.
More or less just
we homeschooled the 2.
Integrating her into everyday life. I wanted to ask though, what were some of the first homeschooling rhythms that you got into with your family that you felt like, wow, that totally took it from a scary kind of, I'm taking this education thing into my own hands, into this is totally going to work out, whether it be with the nanny family or your own family or both?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when I was working with the nanny family, it was a job. And while I had a lot of freedom in how to perform my job, it wasn't like I didn't live there. I didn't like wake up and do something over breakfast and then like, you know what I mean? Like I went in, I clocked in, basically it's like we did school at home. Like we had a classroom and like, so when I started homeschooling my older 2, so I have 2 sets of 2, basically. I have 2 that are 18 months apart. And then we waited 4 years because I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. And then we had 2 again. And I have a 3-year-old girl as well. They're just the sweetest thing. And she's the baby, so she's super spoiled. But so my first 2, when they were like, 4 and 5, and I'm starting to mess around with like preschool at home and kindergarten at home, it felt like what we did already, just like with a little bit more intentionality. So like we were already in this rhythm of, because I'm like a free-spirited, structured person. I don't know how to explain it, but like I like rhythms. I feel like they serve me well as a person. When I'm like not in a rhythm, I feel very out of control, and I like to be the one in control of my rhythm, but I like to have one.
Yep.
So even before our kids homeschooled, yeah, don't somebody else try to put one on me, like a school
good.
system.
This is so good.
But I will put one on me,
Yep.
And then tweak it every day, and then I feel like I'm being rebellious, and it's amazing.
Yep. Same.
So I was already in this rhythm when I had these toddlers. It's like I would create this routine for us where it's like we bake in the kitchen together, and then we have lunchtime and a story, and then we go outside for 2 hours. And it was super open and free, but it was a rhythm. So then when I'm like, well, we're going to start doing like preschool, it's like we do the same thing and we add 30 minutes in of morning time around the table with, a snack and read a few books and do like salt trays with letters. Like, okay, that didn't seem like a big shift. And then you just build. Like, even if you're starting homeschooling your child at age 10, like you're pulling them out, I always encourage parents to like go back to the basics of play, connection, fun, playing games with them, and then slowly add things in. You don't have to go from 0 to 100 the first even year. Like have a year of deschooling, learn your child, let them learn you, go on walks and talk, like be connected, because then you're going to learn how they learn, what they're interested in, and it's going to fuel your rhythm and what you put in there. And so, yeah, I felt like it was just this gradual adding of things. And I would look around one day and be like, we totally homeschool. Like it wasn't like we're starting today. Like even like the first day of school pictures, like I do them, they're cute. But we just school all year round. We school, like even when we're not technically sitting down, I still consider it a school day because of you look back and you're like, we've created this atmosphere of learning in our home, this culture. And with me or without me, my children are educating. They're educating at home every day.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I love that.
You said something, and I'm not surprised because Lyndsey's a pro at this, but you said learn your child. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, every kid has such different, like they're just built differently. God created them with passions and interests and things that it's our job not to stuff information into them, but to draw out what is already in them. Like what is going to make them come alive. And I have a 10-year-old boy who can play, well, and my child who has hearing loss can play things by ear on the piano, which is like, how? Like, and he just like has learned this where my daughter has absolutely no interest in the instrument. And I've tried and I'm like, you know what? That's not her thing. But the girl just created like a bow and arrow out of the sticks and something she found outside this morning.
Yes.
So it's like, like like, am I going to force her to learn instruments and force him to be more creative? No, like I will spread that feast for them, but I'm going to learn what makes them come alive. And I'm going to help them chase those things and present things to them. It's my job to give them the resources. It's my job to open the world to them. But it's not my job to tell them who they're supposed to be and to tell them what they're supposed to be interested in, if that makes sense.
Totally.
They need to be exposed to a lot, and that's our job. But that's not what public school does. Public school says 30 kids, this is what you're going to read, this is what you're going to learn, this is what you're supposed to learn when you're 10. Even that like blows my mind. I'm like, that's not even accurate. Like an 8-year-old might be interested and capable of learning something that it takes someone else till they're 12 to really get interested and capable. And that doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's so good. And so we're learning our kids. I love that so much. And I agree with that a ton. And a curious thing there. So leading into strengths, love that. We have a child that's like just a ridiculous reader. And
always has been. Like to this day, I don't even remember teaching her how to read. She just at 6 years old could like pick up a book and read everything.
And like, I'm going to go out to the park and we're going to go on the swing set and I can't forget my book. It's like, we're going to the park. And she's like, I'm bringing a book. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll bring a book. I'm never going to complain about that. Anyhow, leading into strengths, 100% agree. Our experience with homeschooling, 100% agree. The question I have, Lyndsey, is do you have any non-negotiable subjects where, hey, they might be weak in this area and now we have to buckle down and learn it, and you like, even though it might not be your strength, you absolutely have to learn this subject?
Oh, definitely. I'm not an unschooler. Like I'm not like every day we wake up and we just do whatever and you're going to learn stuff. Like I think that we need to challenge our children to like open their minds to all the things. And then it's like food. Like my kids, I put all this food on their plate every night for dinner, even though every single time they're going to say, I don't like carrots. Well, I'm still going to put it on your plate and you're going to taste it. And one day you might find interest in it. And then the next thing you know, it's their favorite food, right? So I feel like it's similar where if we just say, well, that child's not inclined to math, so they'll just learn math when they bake and they'll learn math. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not enough. Like they still need to be exposed to different areas of math and maybe something else will click. So math would be one. It's not even my favorite subject. I think the key is you can still incorporate math if your child's not inclined to math, but you can lean into their strengths and their inclinations by how you teach it, how you present it. So math is a great example because we've gone through multiple math curriculums. And even though it's easier for the mom to say, I have 4 kids, they're all going to use the same curriculum, you can't necessarily do that. Like, I feel like it's not being a good steward of my kids' education and of their personalities to just say like one size fits all, because isn't that what we're trying to get free from? And so even if we use the same curriculum for something, the beauty of home education is that you can tailor it. And I think that's a skill that moms acquire more and more as you go on in home educating, is learning the same topic for all ages, but tailoring it per child to their inclinations, their learning style, their interests, and their abilities and their age level. So I have a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old, we might all study winter birds, but my 10-year-old's doing like a really deep dive and like researching and comparing and writing a paper. And my 3-year-old's like making a birdhouse with me. So, and I think that's my whole philosophy of curriculum development as well, is keeping the family together, but learning how to adapt each child to the subject.
I love that. I think a key portion, like if I'm to write up an equation for us homeschooling moms, I love what you said earlier about like connect with your kids. If you're homeschooling throughout the day, the connection piece has to be there. I think so many people are like, oh, I just could never teach my kids. I couldn't be my kid's teacher. And I push back and I'm like, listen, if you're parenting them, you're already a teacher. If you can parent your kids, you can teach your kids. Your connection might be lacking because you know what? Maybe that time separated where they were in a public school setting, you weren't around them all the time. You weren't accustomed to their personality. You didn't see them throughout a bulk of their day. And that's not to shame you at all. It's just to say, hey, there's a reconnection time.
Yeah.
And once you have that connection established, it makes teaching so much easier. And then the second part of the equation is constantly reassessing each kid each year, because I love what you just said. It's such a true statement of like, listen, don't go all in on that one curriculum and then not be willing to change because you invested heavily financially. And I honestly think a lot of the homeschool world is shifting out of that. I see a lot more family-centric unit studies, a lot more really affordable curriculum, which is amazing. I think before it was like you felt like you had to like buy the whole stack of encyclopedias, right? And like use it for all your kids. But now I see kind of a trend shifting away from that, which I think is really good. My question for you though is, how do you, like, what markers of success do you look for in each kid? And how do you answer the nagging question of, am I doing enough as a homeschool mom?
I think instead of thinking about it as like at this age, they should learn this, this, and this, like putting that aside, like what my child needs to know in second grade, what those books, like just the title like irks me. I want to see progression. That's what I want to see. I want to see some sort of progression. If my child, I don't care what age they are, is writing 3 sentences of a summary of what they've learned about a topic and they're struggling with that, then success to me is in a couple of months, they're writing 5 and there's more joy to it. Success to me is that they're leaning into the parts about it that, again, make them come alive. Like success for me personally, and not on my child, is that I am learning them and I am tweaking things constantly so that I see the light shining in their eyes, when they're like learning something again. Because when you start to see that be depleted, it's like, that's a red flag for you as a mom to be like, okay, I need to pivot. And then the success comes when you're like, oh, they're happy about this again. They're learning this again. They're loving it. And then just the question of, am I doing enough? I just feel like it's, again, what I went back to before, like if you're creating an atmosphere of learning in your home, then you won't have that nagging question all the time. Like if your home is school for 2 hours and then the rest of the day your kids are zombies in front of screens or doing things that aren't continuing to grow their mind, then yeah, I would have that question.
Yeah.
But I don't have that question because I feel like your daughter or son who brings a book everywhere, that is my children. Like they actually get in trouble for not listening to us because their noses are in books. But like, I guess this is a good problem. Yeah. They're reading and I'm constantly filling our bookshelves with things. Like I feel like I haven't even talked about 75% of the stuff that my son wants to talk to me about. I've never even taught him. We've never learned this thing yet in history or science, but he's read it in books and he's bringing it to me going, did you know that? And I'm like, I did not know that. Where did you learn that? And so they're learning they have a passion to learn something and they're learning how to learn. And to me, that's success. They're learning how to go after this thing, because even what you guys are passionate about, what you're doing here on the podcast, no one taught you how to do this. Like you were passionate about it, so you went after it. And that's what I'm trying to create in my children. So in a very smaller sense, like my daughter creating this bow and arrow today, it's like she wanted to know how to do that. She did trial and error. She tried a few different things. She asked questions and she succeeded. To me, that's education. wanting to know something and then knowing how to find it out. And that's success. So there's so many other markers of success than just the book education, that they know something. That's why we don't necessarily test, because success to me is that they're growing, they're passionate about learning, and they're learning how to learn.
They're learning how to learn. I love that. Joey always says, he used to tease our oldest girl and say, because, she'd be struggling with math and she'd be like, is this the right answer? And she'd guess. And he'd be like, the goal is not to know the right answer. The goal is to know how you got to the right answer. The goal is to know the process of the problem, not just you flipped to the back and happened to look at the answer sheet, It's the same thing with homeschooling. I think you're right. It's like assessing your overall environment. Maybe break away from this part of the day is school and this part of the day you can have your free time, and develop a total environment that is conducive of regular learning, regular connection, and then throw in all your interests. One of the things that Joey and I love doing is like, hey, we have a lot of passion areas. How can we involve our kids in those and show them what our passion areas are? Sweet if there's overlap. That'd be awesome if they take the same interest in what we have. But if they don't, then how can we encourage them in their own areas of interest? And you really get space and room for that when you homeschool and do that kind of a thing. I love this whole conversation, but I also want to shift over to, you had a post the other day that was like, or maybe it was a while ago, but it was about how we always talk about all the benefits of homeschooling for our kids, but we never talk about it for the mom or the primary homeschooling parent. And I would love to hear in your own words, what are some of the benefits you have been experiencing as a homeschooling parent?
Oh my goodness. I feel like the alternative for me would be to be working, right? Like to leaving the home and working. And I get to be home and I get to be the one who just it constructs our whole environment and our day. And I feel like the freedom that I feel to be able to, like you said, teach them things I'm passionate about. And then just that connection is so filling for me, to be able to sit down and play a game, to make tea time. Today we baked 10 loaves of banana blueberry bread to pass out to our neighbors for Valentine's Day, to get to know our new neighbors. I get to do the things that I care about within these relationships with my children, where the alternative would be that I wouldn't be able to get to do those things, or I would have to do them in the tiny margins of my life and at night or on the weekend. And so I get to do so many more things that I love doing. And then I feel like I'm redeeming my own education. I was public school educated. I didn't care at all about history. I basically believed the lie that books were basically just do the Spark Notes, take the test, pass the test. All the way up into high school, I didn't read a book for pleasure. And I am now falling in love with literature. I'm learning about art and poetry, things that were oh, those are things for old people. Or I would make fun of people that would care about going to a museum, which is just so sad, because now I'm finally I'm in my 30s and I'm finally caring about history, for example. When I was teaching American history to my children, simultaneously I was reading adult books about the same era because I found interest in it. And it was awakening something in me about education. And then it's this beautiful spillover where I'm excited about it. So then I'm talking to my kids about it passionately, and then they're gaining a passion for it. And this whole lie that going to school or education is boring, something you just get through, all of that has been redeemed for me. And then just living this life at home, I feel like I feel like I'm living a dream. I get to be with my kids in my home, doing the things we all care about, and have this connection. And these kind of like what you said before, it's not to shame those whose children are away from you, but there is a gift in these relationships that are, you're constantly investing in them. And so you have inside jokes about things. You have experiences that you wouldn't have. You have memories that you wouldn't have. And sure, there are hard days, but the good so outweighs the bad when you get into this rhythm and you learn each other. And I just feel like it's a huge gift to my life to be able to be home and homeschool.
I love that. I often hear I could never homeschool because the time that I'm with my kids, when they get home from school to dinner is really chaotic. And I can't imagine that would be my everyday. And to that, my first kind of gut response is always, well, that is a really chaotic part of time because you've spent the entire day separated and now you're trying to reincorporate everyone into the home at the same time that they're probably hungry, ready for dinner. You're trying to prep food. Everyone's trying to wind down for the day. It's almost like a perfect storm. And so whenever that kind of question or comment comes up, I always just want to I wish I could scream from the rooftops of that isn't how it is when you're given the space and the extra time throughout the full day. And also it's this weird paradox where it's the more you're around your kids, the more you learn to be around your kids and the better at it you get. It's like the thing that Joey and I always talk about, before you run to go do your weekly date night, have you tried to just be better at being around your kids and being a whole family and having them respect your boundaries before you try to flee the situation. So it's one of those things where it's you can't really test drive it first, but you just have to trust when other moms are telling you that your whole day together as a family is truly such a gift. And it can be, I would never trade the moments during the day that I have. I do want to get into also you're homeschooling mom, of course, but now you're also a business owner, right? And so I think a lot of people look at that and they're like, how does Lyndsey do it? So I want to talk about that and what that creative outlet means to you and how you balance the two together.
It's been a process. I mean, I started Treehouse Schoolhouse in 2017. So how long ago is that? 6 years? 7 years? The first few years were just a lot of pouring out without thinking about it being a business. It was very just organic. I wasn't looking to make any money. I wasn't looking to do anything that would take, that I would need to have designated time away from my children to build. I wasn't ready for that. They were young. And I didn't really think that that's something that I wanted to do. And I just wanted a space that I could share. I'm a teacher at heart. So now I'm in my home teaching my children, but I also felt really inspired to teach women and to teach moms and to say, you can do it too. Here are some tips. And so I started a blog, and at that point it was in the margins. It was just a hobby. If I blogged every 6 months, it didn't matter. And then there was a point in time, I think it was in 2019, where I got inspiration to write a Christmas curriculum, and I was writing it for my own children. I was writing it for my own family, and I wrote it very messy. It's not all formatted and pretty with graphics and all that stuff. I'm just here's this thing. And I was just sharing with my following that I was writing this thing for my kids, and I started getting this demand of make it digital. I want it. I want that thing. And so my sister-in-law came alongside me and was also a stay-at-home mom. And she's like, hey, I can do all the technical stuff. You can just do the creative and I'll do the technical. And if we make, a little bit of money so that we can buy Christmas presents for our kids, then cool. Or if we just have coffee money. I remember the first 6 months, it was we would get together to talk about Treehouse Schoolhouse stuff and buy coffee. And that was all the money we were making. And we didn't care. We would spend so many hours building it. Because we wanted something. We wanted something to share light and truth with the world. We wanted, I wanted to share my resources, and I didn't really care where that took me. I just wanted to do it. So, people trusted my voice at that point. It had been a few years of me pouring out and sharing valuable information and encouragement without asking for anything in return. And I think that's where it all started, is that people were like, well, whatever Lyndsey creates, I believe in, because she's already shown herself, she's proved herself. And so we did this digital download on my very cheap looking website, and it just blew up. I mean, I just was shocked. I just told my husband, this is going to buy all of our Christmas presents. And actually I have an income, I can contribute to our family. And it was just mind blowing. And so we started with having a few hours a week. I felt really torn because I need boundaries, and I don't want to have my computer opened on my island while I'm trying to be with my children, but I'm also answering emails, and this whole work life thing being a big mesh pot, which can happen when you're a social media business or when you are a home-based business. So there was a good year where that was really hard, and I almost quit multiple times because I'm just Lord, is this what I'm supposed to do? I feel so divided. And I just kept getting encouragement from my husband, mostly like, you have a calling. I've told you were going to write. He didn't ever care if I made an income either. That was not the plan, but he didn't want me to put it down. And so we figured out a way that we could hire a few hours a week of childcare. And I remember when I was writing my Easter curriculum, which was the next year, I had a nursing baby. She was born in May. And so I was super pregnant, and then I'm writing this curriculum and then all this promotion I have to do afterwards and stuff. And so I'm like in her nursery working, and the nanny would bring her in every like 2 hours for me to nurse the baby while I'm writing. And that was just the way it was. Like the first years were just this like really messy motherhood, not knowing, how to do it. But the income was blessing our family so much that it started giving my husband more freedom, and he could help with the homeschooling. He could be present. And I think it's important. He wants that, and my kids want that. And it took some things off my shoulders. And so it's been a constant evaluation of, he's also an entrepreneur. So he could shift his work hours to accommodate for my work hours. And we've just, over the last few years, we've just continued to evaluate the hours that we work and who's with the kids and how we're doing this and is it worth it. So fast forward to now, and we have childcare on a regular basis. I have a nanny that's like family. She's here for like 15 hours a week in the afternoons. She was homeschooled herself. She's just absolutely a godsend. So she does handcrafts with them and read alouds in the afternoons and takes them on nature walks and all the things that I want for them. So I don't feel like she's just a placeholder. She's actually bringing something to the table, things I don't even have, skills. She's teaching them how to crochet and things that I don't do.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she was straight from the Lord. And then I have a whole team. So there are 8 of us on the Treehouse Schoolhouse team now. And so I have basically delegated everything that I don't care about to someone else. And I get to just stay in my lane, and I get to talk, and I get to create, and I get to write, and I get to do social media content creation. And other than that, other things are handled. I don't have to answer customer service emails, most of the marketing, and I'm constantly delegating and going, what is my thing? What is the thing I'm most passionate about? What do I get to do? And so I guess my encouragement is, if you want to homeschool and you also have a passion, or it's messy. I mean, it's like, it's a journey and it's messy, but it's possible. And just keep showing up for people, serving people, and then you can grow that way, because I feel like people need to know that you're there as a human and that you want to serve them. And that's kind of how it all transpired.
I love that. That's you really are living the dream. I love hearing that kind of that long journey, and I don't say that to like belittle the amount of effort and grit and hard work, but I love that you're in a season right now where you are seeing a lot of the fruit of your labor. And I think that's so cool, and your curriculum is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
It's totally stunning. And I know we wanted to get into part of also you living the dream is this new house. So tell us a little bit about your new house and that whole journey.
It's also a messy journey.
Yeah.
So while I'm building Treehouse Schoolhouse, and my husband is figuring out a new business as well, he was a firefighter and we weren't making enough income. So right around the time that I'm starting Treehouse, he decided to go off on his own as a cabinet builder, and just completely a new trade. He learned a new trade from scratch and started as a handyman. And within a year, he was a custom cabinet builder with employees and a workshop and all the things. So, I mean, it's been a rough 5 years of building 2 businesses, homeschooling, and we had a dream to, we had a dream to build a house. We really just had a dream to live where we had more space, we had more land, and we were willing to flip a house, like to renovate a house or whatever that looked like. But it was around the same time that I started the business that we found a piece of property in our favorite historic town. And it was just like a big step of faith where we bought this property. And now it's like quadrupled in price, like what this property would be. So we got it at the right time. And we had no idea how and when we would ever be able to build on it. But my husband really wanted to build a house. I was kind of like, that sounds like chaos. And it was, but we did it because he was really passionate about it. And when we crunched the numbers, it was going to be a lot of work, but there's no way we could have gotten the house that we got without doing it the hard way, basically. And we are the people that do things the hard way. It is my lot in life. It is just what we do. We are reaping the benefits of it, but we're not afraid to do the hard things when we have a dream. Not saying I didn't cry a lot on the way, but so we bought this property, and anyway, long story short, we ended up putting our house on the market and moving. We owned a house. We put our house on the market, moved into an RV with the plan to live in the RV for maybe a few months before having the land prepped to move it onto the property, live in the RV while my husband built the house part-time because he still needed to make an income. And living in this RV while he's doing that. Okay, that was the plan. That plan already seems rough, but it was worse than that. We move in the RV and list our house, and for no reason that makes any sense except the Lord's timing, our house would not sell. Like, it would not sell. It was ridiculous because it was a time that houses were selling in our area. The realtor was like, there's no reason that this thing's not selling. And after a few months of us living in an RV with making no progress on the property because we needed the money from the house sale to start the grading, we had to move back into our house. We sold 95% of our belongings. Like, I'm not exaggerating. We had no furniture. We were living in an RV, and our plan was we're going to build this house and basically furnish the whole house because we had been living with like all used furniture and stuff our whole marriage, you know? So we have nothing. I'm pregnant. We moved back into the house, and it was just like a rock bottom moment of like, we have this dream and we're never going to get there. And my husband has to work all the time. How is he even going to build this house? So simultaneously, Treehouse Schoolhouse is blowing up because of 2020, and everybody starts homeschooling and finding these homeschooling resources. And so it's just a whirlwind, but basically my income started increasing that freed him up to build the house. And so it took a couple of years, but last year he basically went down to not working on his business and was able to physically full-time build our house. And it was about 6 months of building. And we just moved in 3 weeks ago.
6 months of building? That seems quick.
Well, it was starting already. So he didn't build every single thing by himself. He subcontracted while he was working, and he was the general contractor. Yeah. So he'd come over here and, check on everything and line everybody up. But it was about 6 months of all hands on deck. He was here every moment of every day, all except Sunday, but he was here, morning till night for about 6 months so that we could get in here sooner and stop paying rent. So when we sold the house, eventually, we started the process of this house, and we moved into a small rental house because I was like, no more RV. I have another baby. So with 4 kids, we homeschooled in the RV, back in our house with nothing, then into a rental house while my husband's full-time building this house, and I'm still building this business. So I'm tired, but we're here, and we are reaping the benefits of it. And it's a wild new season because after my husband did that for 6 months, we're like, you don't have to go back to working full time. We were able to support you on my income while you built the house. Now, we need him to make some income, but he doesn't have to go back to full time, never seeing him. So this is the transition that we're in right now of discovering there's still a lot of unfinished projects here because we moved in basically as soon as we possibly could, but we hadn't finished everything. So he's now part-time finishing our house, dabbling into some other, what does he want to do? What are his passions? What does he want to pursue? That's not just all about lucrative, like I need to make money to make my family survive. So it's opened up this door for him to pursue things and to spend more time with our family. So we're just still in kind of a transition season.
How cool.
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of excitement around planning and designing the home? Like, what was your involvement in that? And did you guys do a lot of like custom things, or did you keep it really simple? What was your approach?
So my husband is a cabinet builder by trade, like trim carpentry. And so in building our house, he, like, when you look at a house and you see like all the beautiful built-in cabinets and the custom cabinetry and a lot of those like really unique designs, that stuff is really expensive, but it's mostly because the labor. And so because that's what my husband does, we were able to do a lot of really beautiful things in our home because we're just paying for the materials, and it just took a lot of time. So what we paid for was my husband like working so much, but we did a lot. We decided this is where we're putting our roots down. And so in all of our other homes, because we flipped homes our whole marriage, and every time I would help design, it was like, what's going to resell? But in this home, it's like, no, I'm going bold. I'm doing wallpaper. I'm doing the colors I want. My kitchen is just beautiful because my husband's a talented cabinet maker. So I was able to basically pick whatever I wanted, and he knows how much time we spend in the kitchen. So we did it. We did the KitchenAid mixer lift. Have you seen that thing?
Yes.
We did
just
that
recently.
appliance garage. Like I was able to live, like really do what I wanted in there.
I love that.
And I feel really spoiled and even shy to talk about it. But and then, the design process was really fun for me. It was a lot of work. So on top of, I'm full time with the kids because he's working on the house. We didn't pay for a designer. Like we're the people that do all the things ourselves. So I made weekly appointments with my friend who wants to be a designer, and she offered to help me. So we would have weekly coffee dates where I'd buy her coffee in exchange for her help. And we would sit together and we would make Canva boards of every room and bring all the colors in and the designs in. And room by room, we just chipped away at it for the last year, really, because I knew I was going to do this. And the craziest part is once the finances came through, because we did a construction loan, so they give you it in draws. It's like we couldn't buy anything. And then all of a sudden it's like, we need to buy everything right now. So I'm like ordering lights and ordering everything. And so we've like homeschooling basically took a back seat for like that whole 6 months that my husband was full-time here and I'm full-time designing. I kind of became his right-hand person where he needed to be here working. I would be the one going out, finding the tile, and I would take the kids. They would get to experience. We would come over to the house and see him working and say, what do you think about this color or this color, guys? So it was like life learning for the last 6 months. And literally just this week, we kind of got back into like traditional book homeschooling. But I still see it as education because what an experience for them. And we brought them in the whole process, the disappointments we had contractors that deceived us. We lost money and time. We told them everything. We made a big chart at the beginning with increments of money that we had to save before we could start the process. And what that meant for them is daddy had to work on Saturdays. Well, they don't like that, but we get to color this chart together and see like he's working extra so that we can get closer to our goal. And so I feel like this is an experience they're never going to forget. They saw me go through really hard emotional time in that last 6 months of not having him around and holding on to this promise. We kept getting these deadlines that they'd say, oh, you're probably going to get your occupancy license before Christmas. And so all this hope in that, we put a Christmas tree in the house thinking, oh, we're going to be moving in before Christmas. And then it didn't happen. And so like stuff like that, where it's like, it was so hard, but it was so full. And I feel like hard isn't bad. And now we're reaping the benefits of our labor, and our kids are reaping the benefits of their labor and of their waiting. So yeah, would I do it again? I don't know yet. Ask me in a little while, but I'm still recovering.
It's too fresh. It's too fresh for you.
I can't even begin to explain how much we resonate with your story.
Okay.
Because we almost did a lot of the same things that you guys did. And so the house story, the way we resonate is that we had a house flood. So less of property, home building. And also, I don't know jack about construction as much as, I would never be able to build a house. I can put down subfloor, right? But, or drywall, right? And our house, what was it, 2018?
I don't.
2017?
I think, 2017.
We had a house flood. And the way that happened is that, the short of it is city turned off our water for some maintenance. And, we told our oldest to go upstairs, take a bath before bedtime. She plugged the tub, tried to turn it on. Water wasn't on. Daddy, there's no water. Brush her teeth with a bottle of water, sent her to bed. And then at, 11 o'clock or whatever time the city turned the water back on, the water started filling the tub.
Oh my gosh.
We were all asleep. and
It ran for 2 hours. And
I woke up to the sound of our kitchen ceiling hitting the floor, which was it was pretty horrid.
Flooded from the top, from the second story all the way to the basement, and just like straight center through the house,
It was
like just
everything.
raining through the house. Basically, is what happened.
Anyhow,
It was our first year of homeschooling. I was homeschooling for the first time. This was like a month into first grade. So I totally am like, yeah, for that 6 months of school, Sophie's first grade was very much like, okay, yeah, we're going to bring in the HVAC contractors today, Sophie. Like, we're going to pick out tile. We're going to Home Depot for the 4th time today.
Yep.
So while
Totally
we didn't get to pick the structure or the size or anything of our home or footprint, we basically redesigned the entire inside of the house. We took down all the walls. Our first floor got completely reworked. And same as you, I mean, I went to culinary school before I went to business school. So I was like extremely interested in the kitchen. Elizabeth as well. We do a lot of entertaining. We have our kids in there all the time. So we, oh my gosh, I even today wake up sometimes, walk downstairs and look at our kitchen. And again, even you saying the thing, like we choose to do things the hard way. I can't tell you how many contractors we met with that were like, listen, here's what you'll get. We just want the insurance money and we'll have it done in like 3 months or 2 months or whatever. And we looked at each other and we were like, man, we just don't want that. We like, we're going to go through all this pain and we're going to come out the other side with exactly what we had before, except worse is what it felt like. I was like, man, I don't want that. We can't do that. And so we just went for it. I mean, we had no experience, no contracting experience at all, and asked tons of questions, made tons of mistakes. And I got to kind of build our house out the way that we wanted to, and relied on a lot of people. Fortunately, I have a really, really, really good friend that was a custom cabinet builder and trim carpenter.
Yeah.
By trade.
Is it Matt Memnall?
No. His name's Andrew Oddie. If you're out there, you're the bomb, homie. So he came in and was able to give us so much advice and help of just, hey, you know what? Before you run this, you probably want to get your plumbing done. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean,
good.
honestly, my husband had never, like, when we met, the first thing he ever built, literally ever, was my engagement ring box. And, then 5 years later, he's running an entire cabinet trim carpentry business. He learned everything on YouTube. He really did. He learned everything just like, I want to learn this thing. I'm going to do this thing, and made a lot of mistakes and, had to give people money back and apologize. And so then with building the house, it's like, this is the stuff we want to instill in our kids. So he would tell them, I need to learn this, so I'm going to go figure it out. We've joined a few home building groups on Facebook and asked a lot of questions, and he got his GC license and he just learned. I mean, he's never done it. And like,
That's
we made a
awesome.
lot of mistakes too, where it's like, which thing do you do first? And how do you make sure that you're going to get your license with this and that? And he would just figure it out. And I feel like that right there is a lesson for our children. Like, you can just figure it out. Like, that's the way the world's going. Those are the people that are going to be hired. Those are the people that are going to make something and start businesses and do things, like not the ones that can just follow the rules and follow the list, but the ones who have a passion and they're going to go after it. And every person has that inside of them. Our children have that inside of them. It's our job to like point them in the right direction and encourage them and say, like, that does seem really scary and big, but you can do that thing. Remember when we didn't know anything and we built a house? Like, you can do that thing too. For example, my 10-year-old son loves books, loves stories, listens to children's podcasts all the time. He wants to start a podcast himself, and he wants to tell stories. And so initially I'm like, that requires something from me, like setting it all up, overseeing it. And then are we going to really share that with the world? What if it's not good? What if he fails? And that's when you pause and say, like, this is home education. This is it. It's setting him up. Like, it's saying you can do it. It's teaching him the steps too. So before he ever is going to share a story, it's teaching him what it means to create a good story, and the plot and the characters and the conflict and the resolution. And so before I ever put him on a mic, even if no one ever hears it, it's been a few months of him having to write out his stories and to see, is he dedicated to this? So he's typing out all of his stories that he wants to share, doing character development. So these are the things that we get to model to our children. And then and then help them develop in
I love that.
themselves.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Give me a so Treehouse Schoolhouse. We've been talking about this a lot. Would love to have the description of this organization. What do you do? What do you provide? And I'm interested in like where it's like what's next? What's next for Treehouse Schoolhouse?
That's a great question. We have a company retreat this weekend. So a lot of those questions are going to be answered. We do it once a year. My sister-in-law, my co-founder, she lives in California and I live in North Carolina. So we are all coming together to dream about the next year. But currently, I offer biblical encouragement and encouragement for the mother at all, for all the mothers, but specifically for the home educating mothers or the mothers that are interested into that. So I have a blog that's filled with resources, practical resources, encouragement. And then we create curriculum specifically for kind of like a Charlotte Mason vibe where you're going to get the poetry and the handcrafts and the living books. We talk a lot about family style learning is a huge passion. So everything you find on my website, all of the curriculum is going to be developed for the whole family in mind. So we have Bible curriculum. We wrote Rooted last year. Rooted was inspired by my own journey in my faith, where I hit a wall in kind of a fork in the road in my early 20s when the rug got pulled out from under me. And I basically was like, am I going to follow Jesus for myself? Or have I always just been living on the back of my parents' faith? And because my roots were deep in the Word of God and in my experiences and in knowing Him and in hearing Him from my own life, when I was going through the storm, I chose to stay grounded in Him and to grow and to thrive. And out of that, I was able to have hope and, passion again and kind of come out of that really difficult time. And I think it's important as parents that we root our children. We root them in family and in our culture, and we root them in the Word of God. And so I wrote Rooted. That was my first big passion project. I wrote small things before that, but Rooted came out last year, and I'm currently writing Rooted Volume 2. So the first volume is kind of half the school year, and it's all about the inner work of God in our lives, the identity that we have in Him, wisdom, things like that. And then Rooted Volume 2 is the expression of that. So it's our virtues and our character and how that comes out in our lives, the fruit of the tree that's rooted. And so that's my work right now. We also have one of our most popular products is Treehouse Nature Study. It's nature study with beauty subjects mixed in. So a lot of people use it for morning time because it brings in your small people. I have hand rhymes on YouTube that I do with my kids for the little people and folk songs. But then we also have like nature notebooking and science experiments and things like that that go a little bit deeper for the older children. So that's been out for a few years. We released it by season, and now we offer all 4 seasons, like a 4 seasons collection of it. People use it year after year. And once the children get to be like middle school, you kind of have done it. You've done all the things in the curriculum. So one project that we're developing this year is an extension set for those middle school years, which I think is really valuable because you have a 7th grader, and I don't know what your experience is, but as you said earlier, like people are more interested in this like life-filled learning and not just buying this big curriculum set.
Yeah.
And, curating education for our children. But you don't really see a lot of that the beauty subjects and the fun and the chasing their interests. You don't really see a lot of resources out there for those middle school years. So that's also another project that we're working on this year to extend it for those who have been through it, that want a little bit more, or if you're just jumping in and you have middle schoolers, you're wanting to learn in the rhythm of the seasons, but go a little bit deeper. The beautiful thing about it is that it touches a lot of subjects at once. So a lot of people use it as their core because we touch on art and poetry. There's a lot of writing involved in language arts opportunities. So it's a different way of looking at education to be able to use this one thing for all of your kids and for multiple subjects.
I love that. Are all your resources digital only, or do you offer a printed copy? How does that work?
We do. We started digital, and literally the next year we had so many people saying like, this is too hard for me to figure out printing and binding. And I personally don't like just buying digital products either.
Yeah.
So we have a warehouse in Texas, and we have all of our products there. We offer them as most of our products we also offer in hard copy, printed on like beautiful paper, because we have a lot of art. So like really high color illustrations and things like that.
So someone else is shipping out all your books for you in Texas. Cool.
Yes, not here. Not
That's
in
amazing.
the RV. I wasn't storing all of my stuff. No,
Okay,
it's all a warehouse that does like print to order. Like as soon as someone orders it, they fulfill that and they ship it out.
Love that. That's awesome.
A lot
Did
of
she
moving
answer your
parts.
question?
I mean, I'm good to go. I feel like that was a great conversation. It was very informative for me. And I loved hearing about your journey in all the ways that we relate.
Mhm.
Everything from home renovation and or building to being displaced. I mean, we lived in like hotel rooms and our in-laws, and when our house flooded, it was just a nightmare with little kids, and to starting a business based on curriculum, which we also did, right? And it's awesome to cross paths with you, Lyndsey. And where can folks find you? So many people out here listening to this are probably like, I've got to find this curriculum. I got to find Lyndsey. I want to hear more from her. Where can they find you? Where can they find your books?
You can go to treehouseschoolhouse.com, and that's where we have our blog and our shop. So everything's there. I also am very active on Instagram, treehouse_schoolhouse. And we also have a newish YouTube channel. I referenced before that we have hand rhymes, but we also do like before when we lived in the rental house, I did a whole tour of our homeschool space and storage solutions for homeschooling in a small space, different things like that. So our YouTube channel is just sort of getting ramped up, but you can find me over there as well.
Awesome. One last question. Are you ever going to do a home tour of your new house?
I am not.
You're not. You're going to keep that.
I'm not. I feel like I needed something to be private. I share little glimpses here and there, and I'm very active in Instagram stories. So like today I showed pictures and videos of us cooking in there. So you're going to see things. And of course, when we were working on our homeschool room, my husband's putting in the flooring as we speak. I will do a full tour of my homeschool room and share all the links to all the things. However, I had to draw a boundary because I have a lot of things to talk about in the homeschooling arena. And it was very tempting to, I really wanted to create like a home design account and start a whole new business.
I know.
But I had to stay in my lane, and that has been a hard discipline for me. But I feel like it's just an area I decided to draw a line and say like, I don't have time to share the links to all my wallpaper and all my paint colors and all my furniture. Like that's not fruitful for me right now. I love you guys, but I just can't do it all. And unless it directly correlates to my content, it's just not something that I'm going to do.
Totally. I think that's a wise choice. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Lyndsey, for coming on the show today. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I feel encouraged as a homeschool mom. I hope everyone listening does too.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And with that, Lyndsey of Treehouse Schoolhouse has left the virtual chat. I wanted to just encourage everybody that, man, the stuff that she's got for sale is so powerful, so great. And to really just make it even more of an awesome experience for you guys, she's offered a homegrown discount for y'all for Homegrown 15 is the code.
Homegrown Podcast 15.
Homegrown Podcast 15 is the code. So if you go on to treehouseschoolhouse.com and you're looking to order some curriculum for yourself, punch that code in and get yourself a discount. So,
totally. Love it.
we've also got curriculum if you are interested in that. And that's at homegrowneducation.org. Everything from nutrition curriculum for your kids to meal plans for yourself. And we've got a goods shop. This is hazelmeyergoods.com. We've got everything from tea to coffee to lard dish soap and sourdough tools. Get on that site, get yourself some of that. And if you want to follow or hear more from us, you can do that. We're both on Instagram. Elizabeth is at Liz Hazelmeyer. I'm at Joey Hazelmeyer, and you can find us both, or primarily Elizabeth, at homegrown_education. And until next time, that is a wrap.